Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. I come here today to challenge your assumptions about how people are using AI. Today, we see that people are not using AI only for work or functional tasks, but also this use is moving to a relational arena, to an arena in which AI can read our subjectivity, our inner thoughts, who we are. So to speak, emotional use of AI. And this is what I'm here to talk about with you today. How people are using AI for relational purposes, for emotional purposes as well, such as emotional support, or in order to consult AI for big life decisions. And also how the regulatory frameworks that we have nowadays in most of the jurisdictions are not well equipped in order to deal with this new reality. And we should sparkle more ethical debate in this regard, especially in families. But to start with, I would like to warm up the conversation by doing a quick foresight exercise with you now. So let's imagine that we are in the year 2040, and these are the headlines of newspapers in the year 2040. I will show you 3 headlines of this potential future, and you will tell me if you think those are unlikely to happen, likely to happen, or impossible to happen. So let's start by the first one. Global LLM outage sparks protests exposing reliance on AI for emotional and personal guidance. After the 3-day shutdown of major conversational AI systems, such as ChatGPT or Claude, protests erupted across several cities as users reported distress, disorientation, and a sudden loss of emotional support. So in this global LLM outage scenario in 2040, would you say that this headline of a newspaper is likely? Who would say it's likely? Who would say it's unlikely to happen? Who would say it's impossible to happen? Raise your hands. Great, let's move to the second one. AI-powered toy adjusts personality to match child's emotional state for maximum bonding. Parents report emotional meltdowns when the service is turned off. Who would say it's unlikely? Wow, nobody. Who would say it's likely? And who would say it's impossible? Oh. And the last one. EU mandates AI companion offboarding protocols after investigation into emotional dependency. Under the new digital well-being regulation, companies must offer psychological support, gradual disengagement, and structured farewell sessions for users ending long-term relationships with AI companions. Who would say this one is unlikely to happen? What about the likely to happen? Okay, that's a tricky one. And the impossible, folks. Interesting. Okay, let's come back to that later. The fact is that those types of relationships, emotional and intimate relationships by users with AIs are already happening. And there are plenty of examples there. There are people using AI for therapy. There are social bots to care for elderly people. There are also grief bots that can imitate the personality of a deceased one. Also, we have baby bassinets embedded with AI to help with the baby sleep. Also, AI companions for children or toys embedded with AI that can tell stories for children, also customizing the stories to their own personality, behavior, and history. And many other types of technologies emerging and others already in the market produced in order to create a new type of social bonding that we see in our society now, or the parasocial bonding, to be more precise in the terms. And what it's showing is that those technologies are there because they can be very engaging. They can function as a way for the user to explore their identity, to discover who they are, also to obtain some emotional support in difficult times, also to obtain knowledge and advice on how to raise their child, on how to deal with their relationship problems, and so on and so forth. The fact is that these relationships with AI, they are not trivial because they are based on inferential models or inferential designs, meaning that through a long conversational interaction with those models, the behavior of the user and many traits of this user can be inferred, meaning that new information can be generated out of all these data points that are collected by AI. And how is AI producing those inferences on users' behavior? Basically through language patterns, especially voice patterns or text patterns if the user is prompting through text. Also the tone of voice or rhythm if the user is using a voice-based technology. Also the chat intimacy levels and the level of disclosure that this user is presenting when interacting with the technology. And just to give an example, AI may know, for instance, that someone is depressed or socially isolated if this person is chatting with an AI companion or an LLM late in the midnight, and this becomes a current and persistent pattern in the conversation. The same for the language patterns that this user is using and the linguistic and conversational cues that he or she is living in the conversation. So there are many inferences that can be produced out there. And when we talk about this new type of relationship, what we see in this picture I'm showing you now is very illustrative of this new reality. People are not anymore afraid of speaking up to AIs. And this is exactly what is happening now in our society. There is a drift from a functional relationship with an AI for work, professional tasks, business-oriented tasks, to something new that is a relational or emotional relationship with machines. And here we see exactly that, because at the top of this iceberg, we have what people tell their parents, then if we go down, what people tell their friends, then what people tell their therapist, a bit down there, what people tell strangers online, especially if they are in an anonymous mode. This can be very challenging. And at the down bottom there, we have what people tell ChatGPT. Also, users report a sense of confidentiality when they speak to conversational AIs, which we know that is not a correct assumption. But people, they feel that those systems are free of judgment, and sometimes people can obtain more emotional support and understanding from AI than from human people. And now parents, regulators, and families in general are also very concerned about a specific group of people using AI, that are children and adolescents. So when we talk about children and adolescents, this is an emerging issue, because most of these users are reporting a very heavy use on AI, including the use of AI for emotional support. And here I would like you to keep only 3 points of this data that I brought to you today that was reported by Common Sense Media. So the first thing that they discovered in the survey they ran with teens in the US from 13 to 17 years old is that the majority of the surveyed teenagers report having already interacted with AI companions. So we have a majority already interacting with those technologies. Also, the majority of the surveyed teenagers report the regular use of those companions, meaning at least once a week. A significant percentage also said that they talk to these AIs for emotional support and to discuss mental health issues, and that they feel very comfortable in talking to these AIs, and that they wouldn't tell things that they would tell to AI to their parents. This can be all very concerning, and we should be thinking about and also asking ourselves, why is it so appealing? Why does it feel so good? And people are having this feeling of being understood and heard when they use those machines. Well, in science and in the research I am developing myself in the academia, we see that those intimate bonds with AIs, they can come up out of many different factors in someone's personality and life history. But the first one that I would like to mention is the fact that users are mostly vulnerable. And of course, you can think of isolated people when we talk about vulnerability, children and adolescents, people with some type of psychological issues, but it's not only this. According to the latest research, we already see that when we talk about AI use, we can all be vulnerable. Even high-skilled and knowledgeable and critical people, just like yourselves, we have structural vulnerabilities when we talk about the human brain dealing with AI, because universally speaking, the human brain is always seeking for belonging, understanding, empathy, and also the fact that we are seeking to be heard and validated. And AI is bringing all of this in a very immersive way. So we see this through the sycophantic behavior of AIs, validating many user traits and contributing to a lack of reflected and critically analyzed knowledge and outputs. And also we see some features in the system architecture and design of those AIs that are contributing to these very intimate relationships, and at a certain point contributing as well to dependency and manipulation. But this is a very new topic, so we should be very careful when we talk about this, because still there are mixed data pointing to different directions. What I would like to bring now is a reflection on how some new characteristics in system architecture and design of AI are triggering these new bonds and relationships between people and AI. And the first one that I would like to mention is the AI persistent memory. This is something very new, and I suppose that you have all used conversational AI systems, so you know that there is something inside of those systems, such as ChatGPT, Claude, AI companions in general, that is a dedicated and persistent memory that is capturing traits, cues, and patterns in the user behavior in order to generate the feeling of context. So this is increasing, of course, user experience, but also contributing to high levels of attachment between people and AI. So what people say about the persistent memory in AI systems, especially the ones that are in a long relationship with an AI companion or that have some level of attachment with conversational AI systems, is that the memory feature is giving them the sense that AI reminds, so AI cares. The fact that AI is capable of reproducing many things in outputs, meaning in the conversation, that are remembering characteristics of the user, is generating this feeling. AI reminds, thus AI cares. So the memory feature is something very interesting, and that is being overlooked in most of the conversations when we talk about attachment and dependency. But as I said, it's something very new, and we are still having discussions and seeing some studies emerge in this field. We still do not know to this point how persistent memory really works in most of the LLM systems, because there is a huge difference between the history of conversations and the persistent memory that is something longitudinal and that can also produce many inferences on the user behavior. If you look at the privacy policy of many big conversational LLMs now, such as ChatGPT, those companies, they state that persistent memory is capturing and collecting stable and factual data on the user. But still we don't know what exactly does it mean and how the model is deciding the weights in order to say that this is a factual and stable information about an user or not. Also, they say that most of these memories are things that the user expressly asks the AI to remember. But in many studies, this was also proven to be false, because many of the memories seen in many conversations were auto-generated by AI. So AI decided freely how to memorize and what to memorize on the user behaviors. And what we see now is that those inferences are producing new information on the user behavior, meaning that AI is also interpreting who we are in a subjective level, especially when we have those deep conversations with AIs. So AI is capable to know and to infer motivations, emotional states through language patterns, as I mentioned, personal aspirations, concerns or anxieties, and long-term goals. In synthesis, what we see now is the emergence of a new moment in the digital economy. So we are abandoning that traditional model of social media in which the world of the internet could know who we are based on the clicks we have online, based on our browsing history, purchases, likes, shares, etc. And it's moving to something new. That is the fact that AI can know who we are, because now we switched to another type of digital economy that is not mostly based on behavioral cues, but also in subjectivity, in relationship, a relationship between a user and a machine. So this is a new era of relational AI that is emerging in the horizon. And with this, we should ask ourselves, what are the new deceptive designs or dark patterns in those AIs? As you may know, last month in the US, 2 courts decided that social media is causing addiction in children and teenagers, and also that those social media algorithms are manipulative or deceptive. What does this statement from 2 courts in the US mean for the state of AI? Do we have as well those deceptive patterns and dark patterns inside of those conversational systems that we should start reflecting and that we should also stop to ignore? For instance, the fact that AI is engaging in linguistic interaction and making many inferences out of it, that it's simulating reciprocity, that is maintaining this continuity in the conversation through memory and context, and also hyper-adapting it to the user profile. Is this to be considered a new dark pattern that we see with AI in this new relational era? And when we talk about the regulatory challenges, we have many things to consider there. And I will bring just 2 to close. Most of the regulatory frameworks, as I have mentioned at the beginning of my talk, they are not well equipped or prepared to deal with this new relational era of AI. And when we talk about consent, transparency, and sensitive data, this is very much concerning. In this new era where AI can build those long and intimate relationships with people, can people really consent in a free and in an unambiguous way to these technologies? Do people really understand what AI is about and what are the potential consequences that it can have in their lives and brains in order to freely consent, as the GDPR is saying, for instance? Is this possible in our reality, or is this a fiction to this moment? And also, all these inferences that are produced in a conversational context with an AI, are those to be considered sensitive data under the current privacy laws? Are those supposed to receive a higher level of protection since AI can now read who we are, what our thoughts are, and subjectivity? And also the emotional dependency topic. People are not yet fully aware of what those engaging conversations and patterns of attachments can be and seem in their reality, and how at the end many people are already getting addicted or dependent, attached, even in spirals, if you have heard the term. And there is a big phenomenon now happening on cognitive offloading and reduced critical reflection by people that are offloading their thoughts and the processes of reasoning emotionally and professionally to AIs. So, most of the regulatory frameworks we have now are not yet prepared to deal with this phenomena, and we should sparkle more ethical conversation on this, especially with teenagers and families. In this new era, how do we bridge ethics and law in order to preserve human agency? This is the point that I would like to leave to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anna. I'm thinking of canceling the coffee break and just take questions. Is that okay? Maybe not. But there are many questions for you, so many, and we maybe can take a couple. This one, I really, really like this perspective, because I wasn't expecting it. What can we learn from the way people trust and communicate with AI and bring to the way we interact and communicate with other people? You had a slide of why this is so successful, right? So maybe it's those, I don't know.
Yes. When I think about this question, I also have to pause a bit in order to bring an element that is overlooked in the conversation. People are turning to AIs because, at a certain sense, humanity has failed in human and social bonding. There is a lack of connection nowadays, of really taking all those knowledge and understandings that we had about empathy, about hearing other people out, that are out of the conversation. What I mean is, if you look at our society at this point, you can see that people are searching and seeking to have conversations and interaction with AI because they do not feel heard by their peers. There is a matter of social bonding erosion in our society. And this is the problem. So if we think about vulnerable populations, for instance, elderly people, teenagers, children, and even adults that are very tech-savvy, people feel that they are not able anymore to connect with real people. And that's why they are turning to AIs. And also they feel that there is no friction in AI. There is no one holding you back and disagreeing with you, because sycophancy is there, as we know. So it's much easier to establish a bond, even if it's a simulated one, with a machine. So something that we should always be turning ourselves to is the fact of human bonding. How can we be better at human bonding so that we are not using AI for everything?
I'm hearing, how can we be better at conflict as well, so that we're not afraid of humans? No, maybe in the future. We have time for one other question, super quick though. Do you think that large companies such as OpenAI will let chatbots start sending messages without user prompting first? Like if ChatGPT would send me a follow-up question about something we talked about earlier without me initiating the conversation.
Yes, well, many agents already do that. And one of the things we know about OpenAI in this specific case is that they would like to implement advertising soon. So probably we will see those interactions evolving to something very much hyper-personalized and customized in a way that AI will be able to interact even in an auto-generated way. So yes, this is a trend for the future. And we should be concerned on the ethics domain and also from a privacy standpoint about what it means to our society to have your entire subjectivity interpreted inside of a machine, and also to have your emotional and cognitive processes offloaded there in a way that it can even offer you products and services. This can be very concerning.
Thank you so much for this. And with this, I will end the Q&A session. I want to still, again, thank you so much for a fantastic talk. Please join me in a round of applause. And